give me. But all the same, I'm glad to be a moderator here in this program, and I'm glad to be in the presence of minds like Professor Moghalu and Dr. Bugaji, Faiz Shiku, and my personal mentor, Barrister M.K. Abdullah. Please, another round of applause for them. The theme for today is the leadership question and youth participation in Nigeria. The great literary colossus Chinua Achebe of blessed memory said the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely one of leadership. Said there's nothing basically wrong with the Nigerian land or air or water or anything else. The Nigerian problem is the unwillingness or inability of its leaders to rise to the responsibility, to the challenge of personal example, which are the hallmarks of true leadership. Accordingly, the theme today harkens to this grouse, a tardy, decrepit quandary of generational proportions. And here with us today to rip the chimera of its vicious guards are members of the panel here seated. But before we go into the discussion proper, I'd prefer if each one of them would introduce, in his opinion, what the topic represents to them, their personal experience with, and what they've done in spite of it. Professor Moghalu, can I start with you, please?
Thank you very much, our moderator. I see the leadership problem that we faced in Nigeria as a problem of 2 or 3 conundrums. The first conundrum of leadership in Nigeria is the us versus them syndrome. Us, them. The second conundrum is the conundrum of power versus responsibility. Power versus responsibility. The third conundrum is the conundrum of loyalty versus competence. These are 3 big issues in leadership in Nigeria today. The us versus them comes from what I discussed in my lecture at the beginning, the absence of a broad and strategic worldview of transformation. Such a worldview must necessarily be an inclusive worldview. It cannot be exclusive. So if you say us, whether it's in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religion, in terms of class versus them, then it means you're working for the us, not for them. You failed as a leader from the beginning. If you have a problem of the power versus responsibility, and you see leadership as the exercise of power or authority, and not as a responsibility, you've also failed, because power and authority are simply instruments of leadership. They're instruments through which good leadership can actually be effective. They, in themselves, are not what leadership is about. But in Nigeria, we think that leadership is about power and authority. So, again, leadership failure. Loyalty versus competence means if you are from your mind, if you're loyal. And that's why in Nigeria, you find a lot of people, they greet you, they say, I remain loyal. Or I remain loyal. When I was in the central bank and people tell me I remain loyal, I said, please, don't be loyal, just do your job. Just do a good job and we will all be fine. I don't need your loyalty, I just need you to perform. So loyalty means that those who are personally loyal to you matter most. And it doesn't really matter whether they do the job or not. The important thing that matters to you is that they're loyal. So there's a lot of inefficiency, non-performance, incompetence but everything is covered up by loyalty, quote unquote. So it's misplaced loyalty. So that's my comment. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Moghalu. Dr. Bugadi, sir, how much of this quandary would you say is a product of our social engineering? Would you question our philosophy, our ethics, strategy, maybe?
Thank you very much. Let me first say, I think the leadership question is the biggest question that Nigeria is facing. I don't have to agree with everything that the famous writer that you just quoted, Tina Achebe. But I think on this point is extremely to the point that the major problem we are facing as a country, as a society, is that of leadership. The problem is one that all of us here know. We may not want to make it public, but I think everybody here will agree. And please, if anybody does not, I will appreciate if you can educate us. But what we know at the moment is that the leadership of this country is in the hands of the scum of society. People who have either dropped out from school or have not gone far in their education, or crooks that have stolen money. They are the people that parade themselves and dominate the political scene, and because of that they have corrupted the process of leadership selection. And therefore, we must not shy anymore from the fact that we don't have the requisite leadership to get us out of the abyss that this country has fallen. And so, you might want to ask, like you did, how did we get here? It's not difficult to know how we got here. And I'm not quite sure we have enough time to spend. I think if we don't have enough time, and we should prioritize, the question is, how do we get out of here? And that is, I think, where this panel should actually devote whatever time we have. And I think none of us here as a speaker claims monopoly of wisdom. Every person here has a perspective, has a contribution to make. Even those of you who are listening, you must have other perspectives, you must have contributions to make. It is important that we realize the most important issue that we need to really hammer on is how do we correct the flawed leadership recruitment process in our political parties today, so that the best of what Nigeria actually has will now come and lead with the knowledge, with the experience. At the moment, we all know, and if anybody thinks otherwise, I would love to hear from him. You know, I'm trained to listen to second, third, fourth opinions. So I'm not going to be offended if somebody disagrees with me. In fact, I would be more interested. I want people to engage me. If what I've said is not correct, please engage me. I'm even ready to learn. But as far as I know, those who are leading this country are the scum of society. They are the crooks. They are the people, and we know them. Take any political party, whether it's PDP or APC, and let me say I'm APC. Take any political party. Anytime there is any political meeting, and the newspapers take the pictures and flash them on the front page, count the number of people there. Almost every one of them has a huge crime that he must have committed, that has either been put under the carpet or they have found a way of, laundering that image. These are things that we know. Why should we be beholden by crooks who have been destroying this country, destroying your future as young people, creating all the problems that we are facing today? We can trace it to them. And I've seen it for the little time I spent in the presidency. I've seen it for the little time I spent in the parliament. I've seen it for the little time I spent in the party. And I have known that the politics of this country is empty. It has nothing to offer to this country at the moment. They don't even know where to go. But they have all the money. And therefore they buy the press, they buy everybody, and this is why we are stuck where we are. And this, I think, is the issue. And we need to face it. I have a few ideas to say, but I think this is preliminary. So let me just keep myself.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bugaji. As a barrister par excellence, MK Abdullah, what is your take?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Just like the quotation you gave by Chinua Achebe, and that stirred a lot of thoughts within me. That's the book I have read, several times, and I can't agree more with what Chinua Achebe has said. But building upon the views of the first two speakers, I think that the problem really is how did we get these shameless or reckless or touts into the political space? That's the question. And we have to go back to the basics. Where are they coming from? From whose families? From which schools do they come from? From which communities do they come from? That's the fundamental question we have to address. And from a university, for me, I also feel that we do not have, in these times, a functional educational system that can develop character. But we have a system that emphasizes on credentials. And because the system emphasizes on credentials, the youth go to school, acquire the papers, and dump them. But there is no character. And that's an allusion to what Professor Moghalu was saying when he said that what to look out for is capacity and character. But where do you find these two? Character. And you have your degree certificates telling you that we have found you qualified in character and in learning. Meanwhile, these two are obviously absent. So the first thing to do is to rejig the educational system. We have to rework it. We must rework our educational system. We must bring back the moral values into our system. We must begin to probe and ask questions of existing political order. Where are we and where are we headed? We must ask these fundamental questions. That's why the youths, which is why what you see right now, look at the difficulties we encountered in holding elections in Rivers State, for instance. The country's electoral management body couldn't do anything about that situation. And who were the agents of the destabilization? The youth. Now, these same youths, after touting for so long, they get rewarded with leadership positions. We have them in the examples in the Senate, for instance. We have Senator Dino Melai, for instance. If you have been able to be so good at thuggery, you have a reward. The reward is that you occupy a leadership position in this country. So the cycle continues now after now until we destroy this nation. So I think we have to resolve, just like Franz Fanon said, every nation must discover out of relative obscurity its mission. It's either it fulfills it or it betrays it. That's my conclusion.
That's a brilliant contribution by MK Abdullah. Thank you very much. Ms. Faiz, journalist, media personality, and so forth. What is your take?
Thank you very much. I would want to start from me being a female journalist. And not just being a female journalist, but a female journalist in the northern part of the country. I commend Nafisa Mohammed, the lady who raised an issue about her father not actually giving his consent for her to go into politics. This is one of the many challenges our women face in the North when it comes to leadership and their involvement in politics. So I would want to say just one little thing, because Dr. Bugaji and Professor Kingsley have almost said it all. But I want to add just one little thing. Our parents, our traditional rulers, should try and encourage the women. Try and make them understand that their participation in politics or leadership or governance or economy does not make them immoral. It does not make them an object of mockery. It does not or is not supposed to raise a stereotyping within their institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Weiser. Now, alluding to what you said, and in fact to what Dr. Moghalu said, there is issue of a dearth in philosophy, more or less, a fundamental dearth. And I think that's one of the things your project, Dr. Moghalu, is trying to harness, your Arewa Research and Development Project. In fact, in certain small corners, people are beginning to say that Dr. Moghalu is stealing all the minds in the north. Please tell us about your ARDP, your Arewa Research and Development Project.
Thank you very much. I have points that I think are even more important than this, because this is something you can just check on our website. You get all the information, but very briefly, Arewa Research and Development Project is a development platform that leverages knowledge and technology for development. It was created precisely after our experience from 1999 to 2011. 1999 to 2003, I was in the presidency as a special advisor politically, as some of you are aware. I moved to Parliament 2003-2007. I chaired the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I was in Finance Committee, I was in Education Committee. And one of the important points which Kingsley will corroborate, for the 4 years I was in the Finance Committee, and I'm sure up to now, one interesting thing is that every budget circle, we try to find out what is the total Nigerian revenue. Up to the time I left, and I don't think that matter, we never know exactly what Nigeria earns. Right? And it is deliberately so. You will never get to know. Right? Now, after that kind of experience, I moved to the party. I was National Secretary for Action Congress that became the ACN, which eventually became the APC. Now, with all this experience, we discovered that our politics is actually empty. And there is nothing, because the people who are there have no idea what to do. Many people will spend money, become what they want to become. It's only when they are there, they start scratching their head and wondering what is it that they are going to do. They have no idea. Many people have contested for governorship. They don't have a single page that says, when I become governor, I'm going to improve health sector, I'm going to do this, maybe increase enrollment, or even female, girl, child education. No idea. They just get songs, done on their behalf, and they abuse others, and they use their money bags. They come into power and they have no idea. So we said, it is important that we create those ideas, so that at least there will be ideas for governors who come, or for senators, or for members of House, or even for members of House, or even for local government chairmen. So we spent the first 2 years developing an economic agenda for the North, which we call Strategic Agenda for Northern Development. The acronym is STAND document. And that is available now in Arewa House bookshop for anybody to get. Now, I cannot say much. Those who are in Kano, tomorrow, 2 o'clock to I think 4, will be speaking on the content of this document in Radio Freedom in Hausa. So you can follow up and get the details there. We've already done a 2-hour program about a month or so ago. So we're trying to do 2 more slots so that we can discuss the document. So we can get the details there. But more importantly, we created a platform called Arewa Initiative for Good Governance. And that is specifically to address the flow in the recruitment process for leadership. And we have created this to mobilize young people in particular in all the states of the North to stand up to this faulty process and to set a certain minimum qualification for anybody to take position of leadership around the three areas of competence, capacity, and character. So that anybody who wants to take any post, it doesn't matter if it's a local government chairman, he should be assessed on the basis. It's not a matter of where he comes from or what language he speaks or what is his religion. No. What is it in terms of his competence? What is his character? What is his capacity? So by putting that minimum, at least we will be able to take away the rot and the rubbish, at least reduce the number of people who would be contesting. Because at the moment, there is no qualification. Constitutionally, there is a secondary school. But as many of you know, many of those who are now holding that, they have no secondary school qualification. Barrister was talking about those who acquire the credentials without the character. There are people who don't even have the credentials, much less the character. And they are the ones there. People who have actually dropped out of secondary school. They are governors now. And I'm sure you know them. We don't have to mention names. But the point is, we have created this platform to be able to set some minimum standards and to be able to, and we had a conference last January in Kaduna to literally launch this initiative. But we are going to have every quarter a conference in Kaduna, and we have drawn the ACF, we have brought in the code group, we have brought in all the Arewa platforms, because we want the Arewa people to start thinking, not in terms of a northern president. That is a stupid idea, which at the moment, you dare not even say it. Because people say, oh, but what are you saying? You know, we are northern. But the whole thing is not scientific. Just take a look. How many northern presidents have we had? Tell me how have we gained by having a northern president? We have a northern president today, isn't it? Yes. How much of the capital budget goes to the south? Has any one of you done a budget analysis? We are getting better deal in the previous government than we have today. Yes. Check your figures. So what is all this nonsense about a northern president? To do what? You are there, but you don't know even what to do. Others are taking all the benefits. Are we stupid? For goodness sake. So we want this archaic, unscientific, stupid ideas to be thrown out, and you are the people to do it. Let us be scientific about it. What does the North want? Do we even know what we want? Right, let's articulate what we want. It's politics. You negotiate with whoever is the leader. We will give you our vote if you make sure that we increase enrollment, you improve our agricultural, budget on Agricultural Research Institute. Our own interest here in the North is agriculture. We want education because the whole world is moving in the knowledge economy. So this is what we want, and we can actually assess how far you have gone on that, because these are parameters that you can evaluate. You can actually measure. Now, if I have a northern president, he is there as a northern president, how do I even measure him? How do I evaluate his performance as a northern president? Because I have no idea what he's going to do. He has no idea what he's going to do. And we're all here stupid looking for a northern president who doesn't do anything. For goodness sake, what's wrong with us as a people? So I should stop here because I don't want to, because there are so many good ideas that I also want to learn.
I agree with you largely. And that beckons to a bankruptcy now in intellectual thought, and insisting on competence and character, and then bringing to fore the issue with regional ethnocentrism. How does that play into your worldview issue as raised in your book, Emerging Africa, and as discussed earlier here?
Thank you. What I want to say, and I'd like to thank my brother, Dr. Usman Bugaje, for saying things that I dare not say, but I agree with him. But he's immune from, of course, no, I'm joking, of course. You're standing for the truth. You're not anti anybody. You're just standing for the truth, and that is what we should all stand for. The same way that many of us stood for the truth in 2015 and said, "Look, the so-called horse rider at this time is not performing," and we were almost stoned in some quarters, where the parts of the country where we come from. So we've tried something else. We've also learned from our mistakes. And I think we're now wiser after both experiences. Let's just say we're just wiser now. Now, the question of the worldview. Anybody who has read my book, Imagine Africa, we were supposed to have it on sale here. But it did not arrive on time. We will try to find a way, maybe with the organizers towards an intellectual tomorrow, to make it available for a low price to those who are participating here. But I really do encourage you to read that book. And it's not because I wrote it. The worldview matters. Let me tell you why. If you look at the Western dominance of the global economic and political and military system today, you will see the world view behind it. If you look at the Chinese, the rise of China, you will also see the world view behind it. What is a world view? So that's the basic question. A world view is how you interpret the world and how you navigate your way through life based on your interpretation of the reality around you. So you have worldviews at a personal level. You and I have personal worldviews. Then you have worldviews at a national level. That's group worldviews, which for the purpose of our discussion is what matters. In the Western world, the Western worldview is driven by two things. Number one is innovation, the conquering of nature, the dominance, how human beings can dominate nature. Number one, and make things that are faster, better, make our lives easier. Number two is the idea of human rights. That idea led to strong institutions in the Western world. So, how did the idea of innovation come to become part of the Western worldview? At the time, the Western worldview was very ecclesiastical. That is to say, it was based on religious dogma and religious theories. Societies were run on the basis of religious principles. And of course, they were backward. Any society that is run on the basis of religion, as a society, not religion can govern your individual life, and should if you believe in one religion, but to organize society based on religion has many limitations in terms of how far such a nation can make progress. And the few countries in the world today that are theocracies officially are facing this challenge. Now, Because of the ecclesiastical worldview, many people in the Western world believed that the earth was flat. If you get to a certain point of it, you just drop off. Then came Galileo. Then came Copernicus. And all those scientists, Kepler. And they began to use their telescope. And they came to the conclusion that the world is actually not flat. It is round. This was a revolution. So as the rise of science came up, then came the Industrial Revolution. James Watt invented the steam engine. Globalization began. Travel became fast. Goods were moving. And then new things were being invented. Michael Faraday, electricity. Thomas Edison, so many things. In fact, Thomas Edison had 1,094 patents of inventions. He, together with another partner, founded the Edison General Electric Company, GE today. That company is playing a big role in Nigeria and Africa. So, as science began to rise, the role of the clergy began to decline. As human rights began to rise, the role of the kings and the queens and their divine rights began to drop. So, the economy was beginning to boom because goods were being manufactured and industrialized. Institutions were coming up because the crown in England, they fought 2 civil wars in England, or one at least, where the crown was trying to protect its absolute power. And the members of the parliament fought it to a standstill. Between 1266 and 18, so about 4 or 5 centuries of struggle in England. So, what happened? What was the result? Wealth began to be created in the Western world with the rise of innovation and inventions. Before then, all the world was poor, and the only people who were rich were the landed gentry and the nobility. Innovation democratized wealth. Everybody could become rich. If you invent and a venture capitalist invests in your invention to mass produce it, you're made. But what was it that made innovation popular and helped it to create economic boom? Intellectual property, mental infrastructure, intellectual property. That your invention, the product of your mind, is as important as your sheep and your cattle, or your home, maybe even more so. So much so that intellectual property was enshrined in one of the first few articles of the United States Constitution. You go to the US Constitution, intellectual property has a pride of place. So then people are motivated to invent. Because when they invent, they become rich. And the goods they produce, middlemen, many people are now doing business in those goods. Quality of life is increasing. As a professor at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, when I would teach this subject, I would put a cover story that was on The Economist. It showed a man sitting on a toilet seat, thinking. And I would say to the class, what is this man doing? Everybody said, I said, no, look closely. He's thinking. He's sitting on the toilet seat and he's thinking. The reason is because that article was about is innovation dead? Because the innovation that brought the toilet seat changed the quality of life and health care in the Western world and of course in this country. So I'm giving you these examples from other lands so that we begin to understand where worldviews come from. So as the institutions began to grow, they began to check absolutist political power. It was not the king or the president. When America was founded, when we became independent, they wanted to make George Washington a king. George Washington himself said, no, we have just fought a war with a kingdom. I don't want to be a king. I just want to be a president. So, institutions that are independent, institutions that are strong and can control and level the playing field of economic activity and the judiciary uphold the laws. That is why the Western world today is the greatest power on earth. Innovation, institutions. That's on one side. Let's come to China. China has a different worldview. The reason I'm trying to give you these examples is that a worldview is subjective. But if it is consistently applied, it can establish realities on the ground. After all, the Western world, centuries before, believed in slavery. That was part of their worldview, that some people were inferior to others. But the rise of another worldview eventually defeated it. That is the human rights movement. So, in China, they believe in three things. They believe that time is endless. And everything is interconnected. That is why the Chinese, when they think in 50-year time spans. They don't think about tomorrow morning. Ask Nigerians, how you doing? Are they survive? We are surviving. When that is your worldview, you wake up in the morning and all you want to do is to survive. Then you know you are in a serious problem. The Chinese man is thinking about how will we defeat America in 50 years? How will we overtake the American economy in the next 20 years? So long-term thinking, because they recognize that what you do today affects the future tomorrow. So the Chinese believe in this, long-term cycles of time. They believe in stability as an end in itself. And then because of that, they believe, thirdly, that the society is more important than the individual. That is the way Chinese society is organized. In the West, they believe the individual is more important than the society. And that is why you've seen all sorts of things going on in the Western world in the name of human rights. So, how does this affect us in Nigeria, to conclude? Until we have leaders who understand and think in the context of a national worldview, what Nigeria should look like. It is that worldview that will unite all of us. Hausa, Fulani, Igbo, Europe, Efik, Ijaw, whatever. Because we have a common goal. Because we feel we have a common destiny. If we begin to have that worldview, which is a national philosophical foundation, this is what will defeat tribalism. This is what will defeat ethno-religious politics. So we need to begin to vote in leaders who think in this way and who can establish, they have the political will to establish a worldview for the Nigerian state. And it is that worldview that will tell you in Kano exactly what Bugaje was saying. And it is that worldview that will liberate you in the north or in the east or in the south from thinking you must control power. My ethnic group must be the president. My ethnic group. It's the absence of a worldview that allows politicians who also don't have a worldview to manipulate you in this way. And the end result is your poverty. That's what I think.
That's a brilliant take, Professor Kingsley. In fact, Francis Fukuyama agrees with you. He says that even though there's a distinction between the US government, the British, and the then Soviet Union, there was a consensus as to the people agreeing to that government, giving it legitimacy. Now, talking about worldviews and human rights, of course, the idea of human rights nurturing the platform for a redefinition of our ideals, that is a lawyer's concern, is it not? It's a lawyer's concern. And I would ask, how, as ministers in the Temple of Justice, we intend to see this through? The question is, how do we place a worldview? How do we ensure that a worldview is in place that respects human rights and that uses it as a pedestal for the growth of other ideals, like institutions?
Thank you. I think the first point to note is that there can't be lawyers or judges who are angels from this society. It is a society that produces its own citizens. So lawyers or judges or politicians are a reflection of that society. And if they are a reflection, do not expect that lawyers will be different from other members of society. Indeed, there are lawyers who are corrupt. Indeed, there are also good lawyers amongst us. Indeed, there are judges who are corrupt. And of course, there are also good judges amongst us. So the function, generally, as to how we build institutions, whether in the judiciary or in any other sector within the economy, is still driven back to what is the agenda of that government in place. What is, in fact, the leadership? What is it seeking to achieve? And I give examples. The level of impunity we have in this country, or what we have had records of impunity in this country, has been because there is some level of tolerance by the executive government of certain things being done by those who hold certain executive offices. So if you allow certain things to be done in certain ways and nobody gets punished, it will be done again and again and again. That's the point I'm making. So if judges are corrupt and they don't get punished because they serve certain interests within the political government, then there will be more corrupt judges coming out from this same thing. So the problem is really a reflection of that society in which we live in. We must have that thing well sorted out. Judges can't be different. They're not angels. So don't expect to see angels on the bench. Because these judges are human beings like you. They come from also dysfunctional societies like you. They come from poorly, no philosophies like you, from the same community, from the same schools, from the same institution generally. So the problem still goes back home. How do we get to address this question from the point of leadership? Now, there are a few examples. The question of rule of law, for instance, in this country. You have arrested an individual because you feel he committed certain offenses. He went to court. The court says, grant him bail. You say, I refuse, I'm not granting bail. And what's the reason? Because I don't like this individual. He hurt me in the past. The man left that same court and went to another court to grant him bail. He said, I will not grant him bail. Why would I grant him bail? The man left the national court and went to a regional court within the African region, West African region. The court said, grant him bail. You say, I will not say grant him bail. So how do you want a judiciary to function when consistently you have disrespected judicial orders? How can we function? Consistently, you have disrespected judicial orders. How do you function? So it is about how you want the country to be. And that, of course, goes back to the question of leadership. If the president cannot determine for himself how to realize the goals and aspirations of this country, no other sector can do better than him. That's the point I want to make. So for lawyers, there are a few lawyers who are good, and there are lawyers who are not doing so well. I mean, you find a lawyer who defends someone who has stolen so much money. And let me tell you the point very importantly. It is very rewarding to steal in Nigeria. It is very rewarding to steal. You steal 3 billion naira in this country. What you do, you earmark around 600 million naira. Some for lawyers, you can get 10 ASN, if you like, with about 100 million naira. You earmark another sum for judges. You can corrupt more than 10 judges with another 100 million naira. You look at the police and the EFCC and all of them, you can give them some good money too. So you keep 2.4 billion and you spend 600 million naira on the institution. That 600 million naira is the cost of the business. 2.4 is the reward for that business. So this is the problem. So I will get to steal, I will steal more and more, and then keep certain amount of money to settle lawyers, judges, policemen, and all that. And then suffer just for a period of time some stigma, which goes after a while. Because we don't have memories in this country. We forget. We forget those who are even good amongst us. So this is the problem, really. So we have to address it from the point of leadership to the institutions. Once the president has come up with, some standards, some qualifications, some guidelines, some benchmark, we'll achieve it. That's the point.
Let me just add to Abdallah's remark by just telling you something, that a personal experience. One day in Geneva, Switzerland, I was driving and I came to a traffic light, and people were honking their horn. In Switzerland, for you to hear somebody honking his horn, it's like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It is so rare. So then the traffic was confused, and people were trying to find their way. I'm like, am I in Lagos, or am I in Switzerland, am I in Geneva? Then I got out of my car and I investigated, and you know what happened? The traffic light functioned and the camera broke down, and human nature emerged. Because if that camera was functioning, You will never see that sort of scene. I've never seen it before in Switzerland. But because the camera broke down, and everybody could see it had broken down, you see, it is that accountability that was holding them down. They'll tell you law and order in Switzerland. There's no way that law and order functions if there's no accountability. So the people are not better than us. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The only thing is that they figured out how to control themselves by making sure they account. So the traffic light broke down, and it was Lagos all over Geneva. So, thank you.
The two remarks made earlier are a reflection of who we are, essentially. And what he said was that if we look to the society first, it breeds whatever kind of leader emerges, right? And it appears to me it's equally a responsibility of the media to check the sort of deep-seated rot in the system. And many times, the media paints blue as black and black as shiny blue. What do you think?
Okay, just like the professor said, we're all humans. And this applies to all institutions, including the media. Yeah, we all have corrupt people in every institution and section of the society. And the media is very much inclusive. But this does not mean that we do not have good journalists amongst us. It does not mean that we do not have people who groom us to get to this extent. I want to take myself as an example. I was once a student under the leadership of Professor Jiga here. And I studied mass communication in Bayero University. Unfortunately for me, that was the year he had to assume his responsibility as the INEC chairman. But I respect him, and I can say he is my mentor right now. What I'm trying to point out here is, we are the fourth realm of the nation, and we are meant to checkmate all of these abnormalities. But what happens in a situation when the journalist is trying to do his or her duty, but his superior stops him? Because he has received that 100 million naira that MK Abdullah was trying to tell us about. You know, he or she has received it, and you have no other choice but to follow, because you are the minority. And this takes us back to being a female journalist. I'm sorry to say, in the North, as long as you're a woman, just like somebody had said before, I don't want to mention names, you are in the other room. I'm sorry for being so blunt, but that is the truth. That is the first thing they look at you as when you are a woman. They will tell you, go and learn how to cook because you're going to get married and you need to groom your family. But we are forgetting there is also an Islamic thought that says when you groom and train a woman, you are grooming a generation, not just even a nation. So what happens when you keep throwing these women to the kitchen and telling them that is their only duty and responsibility? Are we saying that these women do not have the same intellectual and the same objectives to rule and lead this nation to greater heights? Are we saying we don't have competent journalists, competitive female journalists to do this work? Take the media, for example. You see ladies taking up fashion programs, cooking programs, entertainment. Does it mean we can't take serious discussions? Does it mean we cannot cheer political programs? Does it mean we aren't good enough to stand where these male journalists stand and also try to make an impact in our lives? My sisters in this hall, we need to wake up. It's not just about us coming out. We need to be able to assume responsibility when it is needed. You might be given an opportunity to rule, but how ready are you? Are you being passive just because I'm a woman anyways, I'm going to get married? Or do you have that critical mind? And do you have that thought that you can also do it? I'm a Muslim. But that does not mean that I cannot stand where other men stand. That does not mean I shouldn't be given equal opportunities. I am here to stand up for the female youths in the North. Wake up. Let your mind be clear. You also have the same brain that the man or the gentleman or the male doctor has. He's not better than you are. It's all in your heads. You need to be able to believe in yourself. You need to be able to be confident in yourself. You need to be able to hold your own when it comes to your own point of views and the kind of things you're trying to impact. Going back to leadership, I'm going to make a little plea to our parents and our traditional rulers here. Train the ladies, groom the ladies, encourage them when they're young, and you find out that when they grow up, they will be able to train both the male and the female children towards a better and intellectual Nigeria. We need to understand that all of these problems have to be attacked from our basics. It needs to be attacked from when the child is being born. I'm not trying to be harsh towards the other gender, but I'm just trying to reinforce the fact that we need basic training for the ladies, for the females. That is the only way we can actually make our leadership and female participation grow better, especially in the northern part of the country. As a journalist, I've had various challenges, but I'm going to pick up just one story and make a reference to it. I once worked with a TV house where I had a new idea about a particular program, and it was on agriculture. And when I submitted my proposal to my head, he said, "You're a lady and you want to do a program on agriculture." That is the first thing he told me. And mind you, this is stereotyping. Just because I'm a lady, it doesn't mean I cannot do agricultural programs. Who in the world said agriculture is meant for men? Please, ladies, is there any law? So why should that be the first question? The agricultural program was about youths. How to bring back our youths into agriculture. How to make this a means of our sustenance of economy. We shouldn't all be depending on petroleum, oil products and all. The point here is, when I brought up that proposal, the first thing he told me was, "Why do you want to do an agricultural program?" Just because I'm a woman. But mind you, as long as you create new ideas all the time as a lady, you will be respected in the society and you would always be given an opportunity to govern. I did that program when I was 7, and that program ran for about 6 months as an NYSC core member. And after I left the station, there was no one else who took it up. That was my innovation. That was my idea. And if every woman in this room can pick up a pen and paper every morning and think about a new idea or innovation, an entrepreneur skill that she wants to develop, trust me, before you know it, everybody is an entrepreneur, everybody is a boss of his own, and we will have less of poverty amongst us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Spoken like a powerhouse. Well, I listened to what you said earlier, and fortunately, you mentioned Professor Jiga being your mentor. Welcome back, sir. And that brings me to the question of capacity, which you equally raised. We now run a symbolic democratic model, which is, to all intents, run by an electoral process, free, fair, and credible. Now, as someone exceptionally qualified to answer this question, how far would you say we've come from 1999 to now as far as the electoral process is concerned? Professor Jiga.
Thank you very much. I apologize for joining the panel discussion late. I regret that. First of all, when I listen to my neighbor here talking about lawyers, I have an anecdote to tell, but I don't think there is time for that about lawyers. and how they are messing up our country, especially some of the senior advocates. When I came into INEC, I discovered that there was a court case going on. A senior advocate of Nigeria was claiming that he had done some work for which he had not been paid. When I investigated, I found out that he was a member of a consortium of lawyers that did work for INEC. But he tried to connive with some staff of INEC to extract some of the work he did as a consortium and made it appear as if it's an additional work that he did without authorization, because even if it was additional work, there should have been authorization. To cut a long story short, this senior advocate discovered where the main account of INEC was kept, the bank, connived with INEC, officials of the bank, and had the account attached, and 350 million naira was taken. You know, and of course we investigated it and we discovered that what they did was wrong. You know, and first of all we moved our money outside of that bank, and then we took this senior advocate lawyer to court. But it has transpired, it has come out to pass that he's one of the most crooked senior advocates of Nigeria now, and in fact he is being challenged by EFCC. So lawyers are supposed to help us defend fundamental rights, rule of law and due process and what have you, but some of them abuse their privileges, use their knowledge wrongly, exploit technicalities, undermine the democratic and political and governance processes, and support the terrible politicians who are stealing because they also get a part of it. So really there is a lot that we need to do in that regard. The second thing I would like to say is that when my sister talked about people pushing them into the other room, you may be in the other room, but get out of the other room and go into every room. It's very, very important. If you have to kick the door of the other room, please do it. But you need to be in every other room. That's the only way we can develop the country. With regards to elections, I think if you compare where we were in 2011 and where we are now, we have come along some way. Things had been so bad for so long that seeing visible, remarkable changes within a short period of time is not realistic. But Nigerians have lost patience, regrettably, you know, because everybody is so unhappy with the way things have been so bad for so long, and everybody wants to see change immediately. And it doesn't happen that way. We have to be contented with incremental positive changes over time. And that is the only way we can lay a solid foundation for progress and development in this country. This thing about 2 steps forward and several steps backward, we have to avoid it. And with regards to elections, regrettably, that was what we discovered, you know, when we came in 2010. You know, there was no patience to prepare the ground rules and to do the nitty-gritty, difficult work that is important to restore electoral integrity. And the key challenge, of course, is reversal. Because if you make progress and you do not introduce sufficient measures to prevent a regression, then within a short period of time, there will be a reversal. And we do not want a reversal with regards to electoral integrity in this country. I've made a few points in my contributions earlier. Electoral integrity is key to deepening democracy. You cannot make remarkable transition to democracy and become a democratic country in name and in substance if you do not have electoral integrity. because the essence of democracy is to have good quality government by elected representatives. And if the electoral process that brings in elected representatives lacks integrity, the government that comes in or the elected leaders will lack legitimacy, the government will be unstable, and they will not provide good quality government. At most, it may be self-serving, and at worst, it will not be beneficial to the people who have elected and placed them in. So electoral integrity is key. But getting electoral integrity is not the work of an electoral commission alone, it's the work of everybody. And unless people join hands with the electoral commission to keep on having these incremental positive changes, then obviously we will undermine the process ourselves if all we want is rapid, quick changes with no preparation for sustainability. So what we did, thank God, was to be able to lift the bar. And lifting the bar means that if you spend 80% of your energy lifting the bar and only 20% in ensuring that there is no regression, then obviously you have a problem. So you must strike a balance between what progress and changes you make and what you put in place to ensure that there is no regression, or if there is a tendency towards regression, it's possible to checkmate it so that you can keep on making incremental positive changes. So my key point is that we've come some way in electoral reforms, but the danger of regression is still there. And we must put hands together collectively in order to ensure that there is no regression and there is a continuation of the positive incremental changes in the electoral process. This is very, very important. I've talked about volunteerism earlier today. I want to re-echo and re-emphasize that. Elections cannot take place in any country, much less in Nigeria, if we do not have volunteers. And elections with integrity will not occur if we do not have volunteers with integrity. From the election day process of manning the polls to returning of results and to formal announcement of results. All these are done by volunteers. They are not permanent staff of INEC. In Nigeria, when we came in 2010, we discovered that majority of those who do election day duty were so-called volunteers, but they were paid state government public officials. They were the ones doing the work that the NYSC were doing now. So you find people from grade level 06 or 08 down. They are the ones who are presiding officers. They are the ones who are the assistant presiding officers. And then you have the permanent staff of INEC, the EOs and the other staff who are now doing the collation of results and who are announcing the results. So, for the lower level state officials, incumbency factor, of course, comes in. The governors will have what they wanted because of job insecurity. People will think that if I don't do what they want, I will lose my job. For the permanent staff of INEC, many of them, having been entrusted with that responsibility, they will take the money and then return the results to the highest bidder. And that was what we had seen up until 2007. And what we did to change it is to say, let's get volunteers. The permanent staff of INEC, there is a lot of work you can do from the preparation and the coordination of elections. But let other people man the election on election day. Let other people do the collation of results. Let other people do the return of results. If you are able to select good people to do this, and that is what is done in virtually all the other countries that are serious about electoral integrity, then you will be sure that at least the votes that people cast will begin to make a difference and begin to move in the positive direction. But of course, the Electoral Commission itself needs to have integrity, because all public institutions, regrettably in Nigeria or countries such as Nigeria, are weak. And the weakness of public institutions undermines their capacity and competence and professionalism to be able to deliver. So institutional reforms are very, very important. But over and above that, you need integrity in the leadership of these institutions to be able to deliver on their core mandate. And we did our best to improve in all of these areas. So the bar was lifted, but the threat of regression is still there. Why? Most importantly, because the key stakeholders, the political parties and the so-called politicians, very key in electoral politics, they are incorrigible and they have not changed, and they still want to win elections by hook or by crook. And whatever little changes have been made in the electoral process to bring integrity, they are thinking about how they can dismantle them so that they can continue to win elections by hook or by crook. So there is a serious threat to electoral integrity in spite of the little positive changes that we have made. Look at what is happening in Kano. I mentioned it earlier today. There are elections coming, is it in a few days' time, for local governments here in Kano. Already the Facebook is full, saturated with young men that have been armed with Gora, with Barandami, with all sorts of weapons. And you can see some politicians in the midst of this, gleefully, and it's a very, very dangerous trend that is going to happen. They can do anything. They can kill, they can maim, they can intimidate. There is nothing they cannot do in order to win elections. And they need to be countered for electoral integrity. And the youth have a responsibility to do that. We've talked about you have to be involved, you have to be engaged, but you must engage with integrity. And you must engage with a clear, selfless vision of countering all the damage, if not the evil, that takes place in Nigerian politics. So we have an enormous responsibility to work together, to continue to add integrity to the electoral process, to continue to refine the electoral process, but we must be patient with the incremental positive changes. Rome, as they say, is not built in one day. And you can never move from the kind of terrible electoral situation we had in Nigeria in 2007, to what happens in some of the best electoral systems in this world within a space of 5 years. It doesn't happen. So, but we can keep on improving and keep on sustaining that improvement and keep on adding value to it. And obviously in our own generation and in our own lifetimes, within, in fact, a short period of time, in fact, as short as a decade, we can be a country, and we have a potential to be a country with one of the best election systems in not only in Africa but in this world. It is possible. It is not impossible. It is difficult, but it is doable. And if there is anything we can see from what happened between 2010 and 2015, is that that possibility is there. We can improve. We can move from the worst in the world to one of the prospective goods in the world. So, but it's a joint responsibility. We must work together to assure that. I'm volunteering for electoral work, for political work, and doing it with integrity is very, very important. The corpus, I must add this, the NYSC that had been a great partner for INEC in bringing electoral integrity, and the university community have done tremendous good work. But our politicians have recognized this, and they are leaving no stone unturned to undermine this. Many corpus, of course in 2011, about 9 corpus died in election violence. But since then, the politicians have identified ways and means of dealing with them, the worst of which happened in a by-election in Gaya, here in Kano. I feel very bad to have to give Kano as an example of the worst election that I have supervised when we think things were getting better. NYSC corpus were targeted in their places of residence, and they were harassed. Some of them were told, take 50,000 naira. If you don't take it, you will still have to do what we want you to do. And if you don't do it, we know where you live. We know you are not from here. We will deal with you. We can kill you. And in the end, of course, many of these coverts succumbed to the threat. Some of them were caught, and that's how we got to know this. You know, they did not do it willfully. They had to take the 50,000 and they had to do what they were asked to do because they had no alternative. They could have been killed. Very few people have the will to say that whatever the consequences, I will do the right thing. Very few people have that will to do that. So politicians are doing that. Another thing, Anambra elections just recently. We've been using university people to help the integrity of the coalition and the return of election results. Politicians now know that invariably it's a vice chancellor that does the coalition, and a university around may provide most of the coalition officers. During the last Anambra government elections, they identified universities around Anambra and they flooded it with money, and they were inducing lecturers to take money and to volunteer to do this work of election return so that they can do what they wanted. Luckily, Electoral Commission heard of this and quickly changed the university where they are going to take this staff. And luckily, it is this staff that had been induced with money that provided the information. So there are still good people out there doing their best under very difficult circumstances. And we must join hands and we must contribute to that process. It's very, very important. Our politicians have no enlightened self-interest. They don't think beyond their noses. We must win election by hook or by crook, and they don't mind what happens in the process. So we are the ones to put pressure and to ensure that the right things are done as volunteers, as youth, as people involved in civil society organizations, or even in the formal structures of political parties. We have a responsibility, you, the youth. I'm very old now. I'm not a young man anymore. But we are youth friendly. And that's why you need that partnership between the youth who have the energy, the vibrancy, the activism, and those who are youth friendly, who agree on the fundamental principles and who are willing to lend support or ideas or share experiences for you to be able to do what is right. So please, I mentioned it earlier and I want to repeat it. I'm taking too much time. I'm compensating for my absence. So it's very, very important that you take this serious. Get involved. Rectify the mistakes that many of us have done when we were active in our useful age, which is not paying attention to actual organization. We want the limelight. You want to be where the cameras are. You want to do the non-difficult jobs. Organization is very difficult. It requires commitment. It requires selflessness, and that's why people don't want to do it. But if you do not organize, you cannot change things. So you have to be active in organization. As I have said, and there is a very fond cliche or motto that I always say, and it was one of my students who actually was responsible for popularizing that motto on the African continent, the late Tajuddin Abdurrahim. I don't know how many people here know him, who had developed to become one of the greatest Pan-Africanists we had until he died. The motto he left for us, which I have taken as his former teacher, which I'm promoting and propagating because I recognized our mistakes, is you must organize. Don't waste time in agonizing, because that's what we all do. We can sit here forever talking about our problems, but we don't want to get into communities, to organize, to get involved, to get things done and changed. Youth, you must organize. You must be involved. And you must stop agonizing, because agonizing doesn't help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a rather sad tale, because what you just said is that institutions, good institutions, are what thrive beyond individual capacity. However, there's a despotic pattern that seems to hamper this progressive trait nonetheless, we will try our part to see how we can change this. Because of time, there will be one final general question, and then the final takes of all the panelists will be taken all at once, in tandem with the question that is asked. And the question is this: of the many perennial questions we've asked, concerning our political trajectory, the youth question seems to be more profound, right? And the argument now is that the current crop of youth lack both the vision and competence to take the lead. Now, in tandem with your final summaries of everything you said, could you please get an answer to this question as well? Professor Dr. Bugaji, forgive me.
Okay, I have three substantive points, but I'm going to put them aside because there isn't the time. I'm going to essentially take interventions that I think are important. Maybe some other time I can make my substantive points. Let me start with the point I started, and I think it's important that you get involved. I made the point that this idea of the North having a president is a stupid idea. What the North should be thinking, indeed what every part of the country should be thinking, whatever community, whatever group, even like the youth, that should be thinking is, what is the youth agenda? What is the Northern agenda? What does the North want? Now I want you to go to your budget, the 2018 budget that is being now going through the National Assembly. Go to the budget for agriculture. You will find that the three universities for agriculture have, I want to show you something. Three universities of agriculture have been, have been taken back to agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture. Now look at the budget of University of Agriculture, Impunity, the one in Abeokuta, and the one in Benue. You'll find that each of them is in the region of about 10 billion. If you go to the research institutes, and some of the research institutes like that of VOM in Jos, that of ARLS, and the ones in Samaru, the ones on the animal science and the one on the crop, all the, including the ones that are in Badunkowa, everywhere in other parts of the North, they do not add up to 2 to 3 billion. Meaning, the North is getting, in terms of agriculture, in terms of research and development, not even up to, if you like, 10% of what these other institutions are getting. So I just want you to check for yourself and see the figures. In fact, there are institutions that have been scrapped, and yet a budgetary allocation of up to 2 billion has been put there. So where is that money going to go? So in line with the Professor Jega, you have to get involved. Now the ARDP is doing this budget analysis. As soon as we finish, in the next 1-2 weeks, we are going to put it on our website. At least you will be able to see some of these things. We can't even put everything that we have seen, but it's shocking to see what our budget is. So all this noise that is being made about we want to have our own person there, what actually is going to translate to what allocation do you actually get? And of course, it's not just the allocation. How do you follow up and make sure that that allocation is actually released and is properly used? So this is a point that I think I need to come back to, just to make the point that place we should be. The next 2 points I just want to mention. She has consistently raised a very important point, that women are literally blocked from participation. I know she doesn't want to go into the more controversial area, right? Very careful, very smart. But the actual problem is that of religion, right? Now, religion, I can assure you, does not stop women from participating in politics. It is the wrong interpretation of religion. It is because what we call ulama today are not really ulama. And you are the ones who have made them ulama because they have a smattering of Arabic. They quote 1, 2 ayahs. You don't know what they say. You are not empowered to even engage them. Why don't you go and study Arabic? What stops you from studying Arabic? What stops you from getting the Quran? Engage them. When I graduated in 1975, I had no Arabic at all. But I was able to take up the challenge and I have enough Arabic to engage any alim, anywhere. And I know that there is no ayah of the Quran that says women cannot be in leadership. In fact, what we have in the Quran is the story of Bilqis, who was a leader, who was portrayed in the Quran as a very serious, very sagacious, very competent leader of our own people. So, you see, the problem is not that of the ulama, who I must admit, may Allah reward them for what they are doing right, but they do not themselves understand. Go back to the books of Shaykh Usman. Don't forget, what did he do when he came? He mobilized the woman. What about Nana Asma? We have given women, suffrage and participation in politics 200 years before the West. Here in this place. This week, Britain was celebrating 100 years of giving women rights to vote. Only 100 years ago. Nana Asma established the anti-rule movement, and they moved around all over mobilizing women for politics, for leadership. You must read your own history. This is why we're having these difficulties. The ulama are not competent. They are out of their depth in many things that they say. And we can understand them and even forgive them. But we need to get out of this thing. This is something that I wish there is time. The last point I want to make is related to this. Kingsley made a very important point that Europe was also religious, but then came the Renaissance and the Enlightenment that basically created a divorce between the church and the state. And that was what gave that progress. Now, what many people don't know, Renaissance itself was the influence of Islam on Europe. Look at the leading light of the Renaissance like Dante Alighieri, who wrote the Divine Comedy. If you look at the Divine Comedy, it's exactly the book of Ibn al-Arabi. If you look at the philosophers of Thomas Aquinas, who was a leading figure, is the philosopher of Ibn Rushd. It is Islamic scholars in Europe that actually ignited that fire that made the West to liberate itself from what had held it up from progress. The sad story is that we also fell into decadence, and we do not use that energy, that knowledge, and so we are all stuck. We need to go back to our books. We need to go back to our scholars. We need to understand our own intellectual history. If we do so, we will go back and reconnect, because the history of Christianity in Europe is different from the history of Islam in other parts of the world. Islam can still manage all these things of democratic ideas, human rights. They are contained in there. But our ulama don't know. The ulama of all, they know this thing, they have written about it. We don't understand Arabic. And those who teach Arabic in the Arabic department have not been sufficiently informed of the other part of the world, so they are just, themselves not able to engage. So please, these are very important matters. You are young people, you have all the time, all the energy, all the opportunity to go back and read Arabic and read your history. We are writing articles on some of these things, which you can get on our website, or we can make them available, books that we have reviewed. Right now I'm reviewing a book that has a lot of these ideas, and there's a woman, a medical doctor, who wrote Women in the Quran. I can make this review available for you to see that there is nothing in the Quran that actually stops women from this. But you see, you can't stop it until you learn Arabic yourself. and engage. And there are women, ulama, who know Arabic and who are engaging their own ulama. And this is why other parts of the Muslim world are all far ahead. We are stuck here because you are stuck. So get up and start reading something.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moghalu. In some, education prevails. Please, for the remainder of the speakers, 3 minutes, please, to summarize everything. Time is a critical factor. Professor Kingsley.
Thank you. I'll just be very brief. The thrust of my remarks, again, is to talk about the role of the youth in emancipating our country from the cesspit of poverty in which our career politicians have kept us for the past 57 years. And in fact, most recently, we've gone worse than we used to be before. So you need to rise up. We need to have a democratic revolution at the ballot box. And I'm glad that Usman Bugaja made the point. Enough of the tribalism, enough of the religious irredentism. We need to separate church and state if we are to make progress. Mosque and state, we must separate them if we are to make progress. Religion should govern our private lives if we wish to submit ourselves to it. The state should be governed on a rational basis. As I've shown you, the countries that have made progress have operated on this basis. I don't know why our politicians think, other than their own selfish interest, that we can be different in this country and hope to make progress. They benefit because they steal our money and go and buy all these flashy cars and be driving on pot roads and be phone calls while they're driving so that they can ignore the fact that the road is potholed and, they're busy on their phone pretending that, So, we really need to begin to think very deeply and to act courageously to rescue ourselves in this country. So as 2019 comes, in my own view, we need to be ready. We've been held down enough. Enough is enough. And this goes throughout the whole country. It's not just here. We have a class, a prebendal political class, which has a vested interest in keeping us down. And that we must liberate ourselves from that class. And we can only do it at the ballot box. And the only way you can do it is that you have to think differently, you have to want different things, and you have to want different people to deliver those different things to you. Thank you.
The march talked about youth bulge, which most countries of Africa, including Nigeria, are confronted with, represents both an opportunity and a threat. And it is regrettable that in countries such as ours, Nigeria, the youth bulge is becoming more and more of a threat in terms of destabilization and conflicts and crimes than the opportunity that it should be for our country to develop and to make progress, tapping onto the energy and the resourcefulness and the skills and the vibrancy of our youth. Although government has a responsibility to create the opportunities of moving this group of young people in the direction of progress and development and exploring their potential, a lot of it has to do with us as members of the civil society and not too reliant, on government. So we must seize our own destiny in our own hands, and the youth in particular need to do that. So really, everything we've said here today revolves around how engaged do you wish to be as a youth in the affairs that affect you, that affect your country, that can affect your future. I think the guest speaker spoke earlier on about what he called we must correct our tomorrow today. I think that's the summary of it. We must prepare today, our tomorrow. And it's very, very important that you take this message serious and you begin to engage. Engagement is absolutely necessary. You cannot just hide yourself behind your telephone or behind your computer and using WhatsApp or Facebook or Twitter or all those kinds of things and think you are actually engaged. You must come out and dirty your hands and do the needful in terms of engagement and mobilization and sensitization for our country to move forward. So youth must seize their destiny in their own hands, but they must do it using their critical thinking faculties, not just for the sake of it. And if there is anything we should take away from the discussion today, for me, this is the key point. Thank you very much.
Well, perhaps as a last word, just to build from where respected intellectuals have contributed upon. For me, I would build from what Professor Jega talked about, which is the question of the synergy between the good old and the good youth. I'm doing that because of the importance of role modeling, the importance of mentoring. It is sometimes very sad. Sometimes you sit back and you look around your community. You are even searching for who to be your role model. You can't find. You go back to universities. You look for men who are just simply good, and you can't find them. You go back to your streets, within your family. It seems that everybody is just bad. So we need people who would decide to break away from the norm, do a radical departure from what is going on. And people like Professor Ataru Jega, And if I think of myself as going to be an INEC chairman, then I have a benchmark in Professor Jega. So if I'm going to build on it, I will be building based on what he has done, because he has decided not to just go for riches, but to go for good name and integrity. And that's the point we want to emphasize upon. And this applies also to Professor Moghalu and as well to Dr. Ugaji, because these are men who are involved in campaigns and advocacy to trigger the efforts of the youths in achieving and realizing the mission and the objectives of this nation. Role modeling, mentoring is key, very important. We should not just have people on the streets doing whatever, no. We should have older people who are willing to train young people into realizing their potentials. And once we do that, we will have a better country. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Actually, before I make a final remark, Dr. Bugaji said something that went real deep, and it was as if he opened my heart to say what was actually in it. He said I was trying to be smart about it. Actually, the thing is, I never said the religion stops women from participating. I concentrated more in the passive behavior most of our women portray when they are being asked to lead. That was my major point. And I also liked his eye-opener. We should go back to our books. We should do more research so we can be able to stand up to this older mass who are actually trying to shape us in the path of righteousness. Now, my point here exactly is, ladies, or Islam, as he said, I'm not going to try to run away from it, we have never been stopped from participating in politics or leadership. It's just that the situation we found ourselves these days in the North is what the men, unfortunately, have created for them. They feel inferior to their men, and that is what is stopping them, not the religion, mind you. And on a final note, I would like to build up a little on what the barrister amongst us here said. We should have mentors willing to train the youths. Now, it's not just about having the mentors willing to train the youths. The mentors should be, the youths, should be able to put three things in mind: believe, work, and achieve. You need to be able to believe in yourself. That is the first thing. Look for that one thing you know you're good at. Believe in yourself and have that confidence in yourself. Then work. Work hard towards achieving your aim, and then try as much as you can to achieve your goal towards an intellectual Nigeria. Those are the three things youths need to look at. You know, as a lady, you find that on social media, especially Instagram, women concentrate more on being slay queens and slay mamas. No, you need to be able to look at what you are good in. Yes, it's a very good thing to look pretty and dolled up and all that, but that is not the only thing you are as a woman. We need to be able to note that as well. Look pretty and dolled up and all that, but that